Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak to Amendments 8, 13, 82, 83, 85 and 86. But first let me turn to Amendment 77, which extends some of the provisions of the bill to Scotland. My review of the bills in Scotland and England that are proceeding at the minute suggests to me that if someone moved permanently from Glasgow to Bradford or Newcastle, they would lose their right to an assisted death in Scotland, but would have to wait a year to acquire their right to an assisted death in England. Now imagine the heartbreak if you were diagnosed as terminally ill 3 or 6 months into your permanent move to Newcastle. And that's a natural consequence of the law of habitual residence and residence, long-standing case law on that. And one matter that hasn't been addressed satisfactorily is how the relationship between Scots and English law and the Scottish and English law bill will be worked out. And that's something that I suspect will require further primary legislation in this place and in Holyrood if both bills pass. Now, I turn to the remainder of the amendments. Amendment 13 is very sensible. It introduces much-needed scrutiny and oversight to the appointment of a commissioner. My right honourable friend, the member for Salisbury, has set out in detail the very sensible reasons for the introduction of his suite of amendments. Amendment 86 is particularly important because the panel faces real difficulties in compelling people to come before it if they have relevant evidence. And it seems to me manifestly reasonable that the panel should hear from people who have relevant evidence. I'm also very concerned, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the panel process does not provide a clear role for people who love and care for the person seeking an assisted death. And Amendment 8 requires the panel to actively consider hearing from such people. This addresses a very serious gap in the bill. Madam Speaker, it is important to place the panel process in its proper context. I recognise that there is an important cluster of intrinsic ethical values around the right to self-determination and autonomy, and the right to be treated with dignity. And the justification for assisted dying for many is that people should be able to exercise this right. And I have some sympathy with those arguments. However, there is a further, very, very important question. Will everyone who requests an assisted death be doing so on the basis of a true exercise of autonomy and a true exercise of self-determination? Madam Deputy Speaker, people across our family of nations cannot access good help with their mental health, and good treatment can help people with mental health issues have a fulfilling life even at the end of the life. And I speak of this through personal experience of myself with various family members. And we all agree that palliative care and end-of-life care is not available to many people, and Britain has entrenched poverty, and people worry terribly about money at the end of their lives. It is important to understand, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the panel and the Commissioner do not ventilate or investigate these matters at all, because they are looking at pressure from other people and not those terrible societal pressures. And faced with those terrible... I will, yes.
I thank my honourable friend for giving me. Does my honourable friends agree with me that across all aspects of this bill, we cannot legislate only for those with good mental health, those who are loved, supported, protected? We must have at the heart of this the most vulnerable, those without a voice, those without loved ones with their best interests at heart, and ensure that those people are protected.
I'm obliged, and that is precisely why I joined the Labour Party as a 16-year-old. Faced with those terrible circumstances, some people will seek an assisted death. I find it very hard to accept that these will be truly autonomous choices. We must be clear that the very same circumstances that have denied people self-dignity and robbed them of autonomy throughout their lives will drive them to an assisted death. And I find this deeply troubling. And I worry that we are placing too much confidence in the concepts of capacity, autonomy and self-determination. Now, everyone accepts that coercive control is common. Indeed, it is incredibly common, as is domestic abuse and elder abuse. There are very clear risks of coercion, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I recognise that the supporters of a bill have sought to improve protections to protect people in these types of circumstances. I have anxiously scrutinised these protections, and I do not believe they will achieve their aim, which is why the amendments are so important. However, I will give way.
Friend for giving way. Last weekend, the bill's sponsor posted on X the story of two older people who wanted to die together and found doctors to sign off on their assisted death. Are you concerned that this debate may be romanticising suicide pacts, given that there are, as we know, mercy killings which are unfortunately actual deaths? And do you share the fears of the government's suicide advisor that this bill will undermine suicide prevention efforts?
On that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think everyone comes to this House debating this in good faith. And in the courts, there's a general view that you should be reluctant to attack otherwise. And I'm sure that question was meant on that basis. I do think, however, that one must not lose sight of the fundamental point, that the protections in this bill will not address the profound societal pressures that people will face. And I think one must not lose sight of the fact that whatever protections are included in this bill, Madam Deputy Speaker, it will not protect people against coercion. I'm obliged.
Mary